But I want to just take a second here to introduce Finian Makepeace. He is a co-founder of Kiss the Ground. It's an organization based in LA that focuses on soil health. He's also a leading national soil health advocate, and he does these teacher training courses online where he teaches everyday citizens all across the country how to advocate for healthy soil, how to talk to elected officials, and just basically how to have that conversation with their neighbors. Finian Makepeace is a co-founder of the Kiss the Ground. He's a renowned presenter and media creator and thought leader in the field of regenerative agriculture and health. His dedication to Kiss the Ground mission of inspiring participation in global regeneration, starting with soil, has motivated him to develop these training programs, workshops, and talks designed to empower people around the world to become confident advocates for this growing movement. I would have to say I met Finian and his co-founder, Rylan Engelhart, 7 years ago in LA while I was working on Prop 37, which is a ballot initiative to label genetically engineered foods. And I was really amazed that I had two guys in Los Angeles that were preaching and promoting soil health. So listen, there's no one that I know better to help speak and inspire people, inspire a new generation of people to advocate for solutions in food and agriculture. So thank you very much for being here. Here's Finian Makepeace.
Hi, good morning. How are we? I want to thank Dave for putting this on and all of the folks who rallied together to make this happen in such a short period of time. It's going to be an extraordinary day. I want to start by sharing a story that happened to me that changed my life forever. 7 years ago, a little over 7 years ago, I had a dream that I was an old man, and I was living in Brazil because the effects of climate change, the effects of desertification, our water cycles, a lot of the earth had been broken. Billions of people had died, and billions more displaced. And I'm in this refugee camp, and my granddaughter shakes me awake in the middle of the night, and she tells me she found a hole in the fence. And so the two of us sneak out of the fence, and we walk all night, and as the dawn approaches, we come over the crest of this hill. Out in front of us, a city is completely destroyed, and we had been walking through the desert to get there. And my granddaughter looks up at me, and she has tears streaming down her face, and she just says, "Why did you let this happen?" So, I woke from that dream with a wake-up call that was a possible future. And what it gave me was a new call to do something bigger, to make sure my life wasn't setting up to be that old man who did not have an answer to that question. Just so happens about 6 or 7 months later, I was granted the opportunity to watch a 4-hour presentation from a gentleman named Graham Sate, who is an international renowned soil expert from Australia. And what was shared with me blew my mind. Up until that point, I confidently believed that I was in the 95th percentile of people who knew what was happening on the globe as far as environmentalism, destruction, climate change, etc. And then I was shocked that I had no idea about this potential, this opportunity that pioneering farmers and scientists and community leaders and indigenous leaders had been promoting for years around the world. So I knew that if I didn't know, probably most people were at least slightly unaware of this. It turned out a lot of people didn't know. This was 7 or 8 years ago. So what we got was, we can rebuild healthy soil. And we can do it much faster than we ever thought possible. And I just want to make a note, in the past 7 years that I've been heavily involved in this movement, the understanding from the leaders and pioneers and farmers who are out there discovering this and sharing with each other, it's only getting better. What we thought we could do in 15 years on land, we're now accomplishing in 2 to 3 in terms of results of regenerating those landscapes for water, for biodiversity, for soil structure. So, what this means is we have an unprecedented opportunity that our nation and nations around the world can take hold of. This isn't a new idea, but in the general conversation of humanity, it is. And that's a really exciting opportunity, because with new information and new opportunity means that there's actions to be taken, actions that can be taken, because we can reduce flooding and drought and fires. Why? Well, let's look at this. When we witness water infiltration rates in soils go from less than half an inch per hour infiltration rates to a half an inch in just 4 seconds, we realize just how powerful regenerative agriculture is. Considering that this can be accomplished on farms in as little as 3 years, it drives home the effect that this can have on mitigating flood and drought events. This makes an unbelievable difference. Dr. Alan Williams, I've been to his ranches and farms. I've stepped across the road to the farms on the other side, and there is no possible way that you would believe what you saw. I mean, some of you are farmers and you know this, but you could take a shovel and just go all the way down in his soil right across the street. You can't do anything. So, looking at the potential to rebuild the soil sponge, we can revive farmer prosperity. When we're looking at increasing the ability for reduction of inputs, significant to such an extent that in our second year we saved over $200,000 by reducing input costs such as seed and pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and fertilizers, as well as reduced labor and fuel cost. We had also reduced glyphosate consumption by 80%, and we were glyphosate-free by year 3. That's a farmer who's gone through regenerative agriculture training and has been able to, first and foremost, address his bottom line and make a better profit because of that opportunity, because there was more fertility, because there was less need for input cost. We can recover biodiversity and environmental health, remembering that there can be more organisms in a teaspoon of healthy soil than there are humans on planet Earth. And realizing the law of nature is life begets life begets life. You restore the bottom of the life, all of those things that once used to be 30 some odd years ago existing, and we would see all the birds and the bees, they can come back when we restore the health of the base of the ecosystem. We can replenish water sources in cycles, reminding ourselves that 1% increase of soil organic matter means soil can hold 17,000 to 25,000 gallons more water per acre per year. How many of you know of Gabe Brown, regenerative rancher? So on his farm, he's increased soil organic matter by at least 7%. That means every acre of his land is now holding approximately 100,000 gallons more of water per acre than it was some 15 years ago. We can restore fertility and human health. Did anybody know the little quote that says, "Plants don't digest soil, microbes do"? When we bring the fertility, the life, back to the soil, something magical has happened. At the root zone, the rhizosphere, those sugars that the plant is leaking out to feed the microbes, those microbes are the ones responsible for putting out enzymes that actually make available those trace minerals, those nutrients. When you taste that strawberry or that tomato, your tongue is picking up what those microbes were able to make available for that plant so that that could make that powerfully tasting tomato or strawberry. If it doesn't have the taste, it doesn't have those minerals in it. Reconnecting humanity. I wanted to just share this from a friend of mine. It says, this is not about organic or conventional, big or small, rich or poor, red or blue. Sorry. There's a lot of divisions in our country right now. And ship's going down. And we have an opportunity. And this movement in regenerative agriculture and soil health is so inspiring because of the breadth of people who are working together. It's incredible because there's an insight and a foresight into how big of an opportunity this is for humanity. The reason that people are so heavily invested, it far surpasses any of these issues that might come up. And finally, just a reminder that yes, this is one of the big aha moments. We can reverse global warming, or what is currently a load of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which is causing additional heating, blanket of our atmosphere. We can pull that excess carbon back because we're building soil. I have a quote that I say is, carbon sequestration is not the ends, it is the means to the end, which is rebuilding the abundance and the potential and the capacity of our land to function again. 1% of soil organic matter can oftentimes mean 10 tons of carbon per acre sequestered. This is a helpful slide that I teach my soil advocates from around the world to use to help people bring their minds, especially when you're talking to politicians, people who are trying to invest in conservation, a good reminder that this regenerative idea is not sustainable. There's nothing wrong with sustainable, but we're trying to be clear that when we're talking about regeneration, we're not talking about put back what you take out. We're talking about starting from a diminished state, as the spiral indicates. Starting from a diminished state and ever increasing. It's a very different thought pattern than sustainable. So the pioneers of this movement who've taught me over these years have allowed me to, and others, to see that this is a different fundamental way of thinking. Thinking sustainably is not the same as thinking regeneratively, and I beg you to try it on if you haven't. It's a really fun thing to look at the lens of life through. Another way to look at it is over the last 10,000 years, and then obviously last 250 significantly faster, we have depleted the land. So we need to recognize that we're down there. You are there, we are there. That's where our world is right now, heavily degraded. Sustainability doesn't really make sense. We need to regenerate, and then, sure, fine. Sustainability, we say, is just ahead of its time. All those people with that in their job descriptions, they're just way ahead of their time. You can tell them that. So sustaining broken. A way to look at it really quick, a soil aggregate. How many of us have seen a soil aggregate up close? A soil aggregate's designed to hold 20 times its weight in water. It's this world's amazing technology that's evolved over millions and millions of years. When we break it, it's analogous to breaking a cup, which was designed to hold liquid. So when we look at our system, we're saying, how do we conserve, how do we sustain a broken cup? What is so freaking exciting about this movement is we can rebuild the cup because plants share liquid sugars to microorganisms who make glue, who literally glue the cup back together so it functions again. We can glue it back together, and simultaneously, magically, we just happen to take care of that big problem of legacy load of carbon dioxide. But the big point is we're building back the cup so it functions again. We're not trying to sustain a broken thing. We can rebuild healthy soil. 5 principles, reminder, you can use these slides. I'll share them with anybody. 5 principles of soil health. We want our politicians to know this. I want each of you to feel empowered to be like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, you are my representative. We're in farm country. You should know this. They damn well should. Least disturbance. They should understand why that's a fundamental priority. Living root in the ground. They should understand that unless the microbes are getting fed, that's a one-way system out. That's a one-way system to degeneration. They should understand how important soil armor is. They should understand that animal integration is necessary. In California, we deal with a phenomenon that you can't have animals on land up 3 months before you harvest some other crop. It's completely disrupting nature's design and how farmers used to farm. We've separated them, and it just doesn't make any sense. Increased biodiversity, how important that is. So here's just some examples of seeing what leaders in Iowa, farmers here, have been on the forefront of pushing the cover crop thing. Amazing results. All across the country, we're dealing with water pollution issues, runoff issues. So many regenerative farms who are doing cover crops have gotten to 0 runoff. 1 inch of rain means you're collecting in 1 acre 27,000 gallons of water if you have 0 runoff. Incredible. So these factors can change everything. No-till. We're not disrupting those aggregates, those precious aggregates. When we're tilling, we're literally destroying them. So when we're looking at no-till, how can we all be advocates to say the farmers are ready, so many farmers are ready to go, we need some more support, and we need the funding and the subsidies to start going to things that are going to help farmers do this. There's enough momentum behind it. Getting farmers to be able to get off of that chemical train, restoring fertility. Again, I'm not a farmer trainer, but I've talked to some of the premier and furthest people who've gotten the best results, and they're able to get people. They're not saying get off nitrogen today. Your farm would just go crazy and die. We need to be able to wean farmers off, and that requires things like testing for organic available nitrogen, et cetera. So there are tools that can be used, and we all can help politicians say, hey, look, we need to start funding it so that farmers can confidently get off of this addiction so that they can have confidence that their farm is going to be profitable still while they're reducing their inputs. And that's what's making farmers' profit margins go up. Things like overgrazing versus planned grazing. Again, looking at this phenomenon of what happens in a situation. This is just a factor of how cows were moved, period. In an extremely dry part of South Africa with 8 inches of rainfall, the only difference is the management of how cows were moved. That's it. So regeneration is possible everywhere. We can do it. We can solve the carbon issue when we understand how nature evolved. The earth and the natural process didn't evolve to have soil loss. Otherwise, the whole earth would be rock and desert. It's designed to have net gain, and we can work within our farms. And this is the thing is, I teach people to be able to advocate for this. I'm not an expert. I'm not the farmer. But all of us can step up and be a little more helpful in awareness spreading and advocacy, even if we're doing the main work ourselves. All of us can say, hey, you know what? Why don't I go to that council meeting? Why don't I go to that Congress office and talk to them? 20 major civilizations have failed due to the collapse of agriculture. How arrogant would we be to presume the root cause of our collapse won't be the exact same thing? True farmer prosperity, higher yields, less input costs, stacked enterprises, replenished water cycles, ground recharge, clean water, drought resistance, less CO2, carbon sequestration. At Kiss the Ground, we're dedicating to putting 5,000 farmers in 3-year training programs of soil testing, year 1 and year 3, with the Soil Health Academy and other premier farmer training programs. We're also committed to training at least 25,000 leaders to be more powerful advocates for soil health by 2025. I am deeply humbled to be here. I just want to say 100% clearly that I'm here only because of the extraordinary work and dedication of those who have built the consciousness of this movement, the farmers who have actually done the work and proven and shown and shared. And I want to acknowledge one more thing. The generosity of the people who are in this movement, not hoarding their ideas, is so extraordinary. I never thought it would be real, but the people who are the pioneers of this, they see that's what's possible, and they are sharing. None of them are saying, I found out the key to making a successful farm business, and I'm going to keep it myself. They're the most generous, giving, caring people, and they're from all different walks of life, and I'm just so honored to be here with you, and I believe firmly that together we can transform this country and the world by building back America's soil. Together we can do this. Thank you so much.